Nigeria is in serious trouble as the price of essential commodities in the economy have skyrocketed, with the average cost of living shooting up to over 1,241 naira. The situation is becoming unbearable for the average Nigeria. Welcome back to Laju Pop TV show. We are here again to bring you the hottest gist in town. But before we dive into today's topic, if you are watching this right now, kindly share this video, like, comment, and don't forget to click on the notification icon so you'll be the first to know when we drop our next video. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Laju Pop TV show.
The whole of crime scene.
It's happening in the street again.
The center of political news, celebrity gossip, religious gossip, and happenings in the society.
Join us, the voice of Africa.
The economic crisis is suffocating. People are struggling to survive, and many are forced to eat grass just to fill their stomach. The state of our country is nothing to write home about. What is happening to us in this country? Just a few minutes ago, report came in that the average Nigerian can no longer afford basic food items. This situation has pushed many to the brink, leading to protests across the nation. The reality is harsh. The Nigerian government is not favoring the common man at all. The current economic situation is overwhelming, and it calls for serious concern. Just think about it. How did we get here? How did a country so enriched resources end up with its citizens living in such dire condition? Professor Jibril Ibrahim, a respected voice in our society, spoke out a few hours ago about the government's poor and unstructured approach to leadership. He pointed out that while Nigerian citizens have done their part by respecting the democratic system, those in power have been the ones violating and disrespecting the principles of democracy. They are supposed to be our leaders, yet they are the ones exploiting the very system they were entrusted to uphold. This brings us to a crucial question. What should we call this? How do we describe a government that is more interested in its own survival and self-enrichment than in welfare of its people? The gap between the rich and the poor is widening every day, and the average Nigerian is being pushed to the breaking point. This isn't just an economic crisis, it's a crisis of leadership, of trust, and of morality. But let me not bore you with too much analysis. We have a video that captures the essence of what's going on in the country right now, so you can see for yourself. Watch this video to get full message. We'll be right back after.
Thank you for joining us on Newsnight tonight. Very important points that you raised there, and making some recommendations. Hopefully we can break down some of your recommendations. But let's, look at it from the beginning of this democracy, 1999. Nigerians have been calling for dividends of democracy, end to bad governance and what have you. But to what extent really do we as a people desire these things in a way that will reflect in our leadership and the way they conduct themselves in office?
I think one way of looking at it is to realize that Nigerians have always been very deeply committed to democracy, but we are finding out now that our leaders have never been committed to democracy. They've been committed to the acquisition of power and the use of power for self-aggrandizement, but not governance. Governance is about providing for the people. It's about addressing the problems that affect the people. It's about improving lives, livelihoods, and people's welfare. And these are what we have not had. And the tragedy of Nigeria is when you count back from 1999, each regime that comes into power, each government that comes into power is worse than the previous one. Obasanjo, that we criticize so heavily, is now standing upright as the most competent and committed government we have had. The person who succeeded him unfortunately didn't have the health to do much. Then Jonathan came out and he turned out to be much worse. And we were saying with Jonathan, this is the first university graduate that's ruling this country. We will see evidence of that education in the governance. It turned out to be all about corruption. Jonathan left, then Buhari came out, definitely worse than Jonathan. And now Nigerians are in their hundreds of thousands in the streets saying that the current Tinubu administration is the worst we have seen when you take your index as misery and suffering of the people. How can we sustain a country when each government that comes in is worse than all the previous ones?
That's why I actually asked the question as to whether indeed, is it about the leadership? Is it that we've just not been able to vote for the right leaders? Or is the problem really with us as a people? And it's reflected in, you know, in government. But maybe you'll respond to that after Sulai asked his question. Sulai, you were going to ask. Go ahead.
Well, you know, Nigeria has actually gone through a lot. Banditry, Boko Haram, insecurity, and the corruption you spoke about, the government of Goodluck Jonathan. Perhaps, what are those key factors, if you would, perhaps critical three, that you think that the Tinubu administration should start looking into at the moment that will also, as they fix, give more voice to the people in a democracy?
What we've done in our memo is to give an integrated argument to say that Nigeria is in deep misery and suffering because insecurity is too high and the economy is not working for the people. Now, why do we have these two problems? Because the level of corruption in government has continued to rise each year. And because corruption is rising, there's no way you can guarantee security for two reasons. One is you can't do procurements that enable the government to do its work because the resources are filtered away. The second thing is that Nigerian citizens are also watching. The picture they see of those in government are people who are stealing the wealth of the nation. And then they ask themselves one question: how come they are able to steal the wealth of the country and we can't? Oh, they have security with guns, we don't. So what have Nigerians been doing? They have been procuring guns. And they have been using these guns against their neighbors, against people they don't know, against the state, against security, against everybody. So it's the demonstration effect. When the leadership does not live up to the expectation of the people, people learn lessons. And lessons can be positive, lessons can be negative. Because the corruption is so high, Nigerians are also learning very terrible lessons of what they will do, which is the ideology of self-help. So our key argument is this: everybody knows that the center of corruption is in government. And what the leader of government needs to do is to seriously sanction those among his team that have been shown in public to be corrupt. We have had ministers in this particular government where massive allegations have been released against them, and it's now a year and nothing has happened. This is a signal that this government is not ready to punish those among them who are corrupt. And that's a powerful message. Once the president doesn't come out openly, clearly, without ambiguity, and shows his own team that it's not business as usual, and accountability will count in this government. You mess up with public resources, you go to jail. Right. That's the signal all Nigerians have been waiting for, and that's the signal we are not seeing.
Rather unfortunately, I mean, especially when you put it that way. Now, you narrowed it down to the issues of incompetence and a lack of empathy on the part of, you know, the nation's leadership. I mean, expatiate on that and how it's fundamental to Nigeria's problems.
You see, the question of competence is very basic in good governance, because you need to be able to search for teams, for people who can deliver on the mission you give to them. And the proof of this is when you look at the first tenure of Tinubu as governor of Lagos State and his second tenure as governor of Lagos State, all analysts are agreed that he was very successful in choosing people with proven competence, and precisely because of that, there was a marked increased capacity of the government of Lagos to deliver services to the people. This time around, it is also very clear to all analysts that the calculation in government is that we want a political team that will guarantee we remain in office for a second term. And that competence was definitely not at the center of consideration in the choice of the key players in the current government. And we are now suffering because of that choice, that political decision that has been made. So the question of competence is very clear, but I think the whole question of government is that our constitution is clear. The purpose of government is to provide for the security and welfare of citizens. These are the two things all Nigerian citizens are saying. We are not seeing it. We are not seeing improved security, and we are not seeing improved welfare. Therefore, the verdict is failure. And if you are failing in your key mission, it means there is a critical tipping point that's approaching, and that's why we talk of Nigeria being at the crossroads.
So what does this president need to do? Sorry, Salai.
No, that's fine.
What does this president need to do now to salvage the situation and to bring back the trust of the people back in not just this administration, but maybe going forward? What are the fundamentals that need to be?
I think the first thing that needs to happen is to show a clear commitment to combating corruption within the team itself. Once the president will have the boldness and the insight to do that, people will begin to relax and feel the perspective, the future would be bright because steps are being taken. And if the level of anger and frustration is so high now, is because people are not seeing any steps being taken. Take this example of promises almost on a daily basis about provisions and palliatives made for the poor.
Yeah.
We live in this society. There's none of us who doesn't know poor people. And you do your survey around those you know, no poor person has ever benefited from any of these things governments talk about. So it is not impressive for government to be saying, we are doing this for the poor, when the poor never ever see what is being claimed.
Do you have a recipe to arrest in that? Because now he has just rejigged the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, and you know, Nigeria has a very big youth population, and they've been talking. Now that you have been able to put your finger on some of the key concerns, which is implementation, what do you think the Tinubu administration should start looking at?
I think the point has to be made very clearly. The government is not unaware of what's happening to the failure of its programs. This food items, cereals and rice that are being offered, the monetary contributions being made for the poor, we all know exactly what has happened to them. When food is being supplied, it's given to state governors, who give it to their local government chairman, who then pass it through the ward chairman of the ruling party in the state. So you know you are handing over this directly to politically powerful individuals who believe that that is their reward for their party being in power. So there isn't even an attempt to say, We have a register of the poor in this country. The register exists, but that register has never been used for allocation. And government can do it because it has the register. We spent 10 years in this country doing a detailed register of the poor. They know who they are, and they know where they are, and they have their telephone numbers. But they never even make the effort to reach them. And I'm saying the onus of proof is on government now, and every Nigerian is looking at them. If the poor don't start to see a change, don't start seeing benefits, then these people are saying, well, we draw a line with government, it's the end of public trust, and now it's everybody for themselves. And when it comes to that stage, then I think it will be a crisis where we move beyond the tipping point.
We hope things don't get to
Absolutely.
that point.
That's why we're having this conversation, and we'd like to thank you for your time, Professor Jibrin Ibrahim. Many thanks for your...
My people, let's not beat around the bush. What's happening in Nigeria right now is beyond tragic and is infuriating. The government failure is glaring, and it's the ordinary citizens who are paying the price. The killing of protesters, the economic hardship, and the empty promises from those in power are not just issues. They are signs of a deep-rooted problem that has plagued our nation for far too long. Here's how I see it. The government has lost touch with the reality on the ground. They speak of long-term benefit and reform, but how do we trust in a future they promise when today is unbearable? The removal of subsidies, which was supposed to help stabilize the economy, has only brought more suffering. Prices out of control, inflation is suffocating us, and the naira is practically worthless. How are we supposed to survive this? President Tinubu's response to the crisis has been disappointing, to say the least. Instead of offering real solutions, he tells us to look beyond the temporary pain. But what about those who can't look beyond today because they don't know where their next meal is coming from? What about the lives lost in this protest? These are not just numbers. They are people, our people. This isn't about encouraging anyone to keep protesting. That's a personal decision. But as for me, I can't ignore the fact that the government is failing us, and they seem more concerned with maintaining their power with the well-being of the citizen. It's a disgrace, and it's hard to see how they can regain the trust of the people after this. So if you ask me, the situation is there and the future looks uncertain unless there's a drastic change in how our leaders approach these issues. The anger, the frustration, it's all justified. We deserve better, and it's high time those power realize that for now, all I can do is share my thought and hope that this message reaches those who can make a difference, because this can't go on. We need real leadership, not just empty words. Watching this video right now, remember to hit that notification bell so you never miss an update as we continue to expose the truth and fight for a better Nigeria. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share, and stay tuned for our next video.